in. As we are going through this new phase of vaccination, which I call the new dawn in COVID-19 era. There have been a lot of questions about the vaccines, and we thought as a company it would be a great idea to do something like this on a Zoom call. Give everybody a chance to ask questions. The call will be recorded, is being recorded, I should say, and we'll make it available in one way or the other, either on our website or on our LinkedIn or Facebook page. So if you miss out on anything, don't worry. You'll have an opportunity to go back and look at it, and not only that, you could share it with other people also. All right. What I would request everybody to do is, just mute your computers.
Okay.
Yeah, just mute your computers or iPads or iPhones or other smartphones, so that we don't have interruption, and then everybody gets a chance in an orderly fashion to ask questions, and we'll try to address most of the questions. I'm going to start with a brief presentation so that we already answer some of the questions. I'm going to try and share my screen first. All right, I hope everybody can see this.
Wonderful, yes, we can see that.
Okay, great. So, we're going to talk about COVID-19 vaccination. And, before we jump into the vaccines, I think we'll talk a little bit about, what questions I'm going to talk about. And if you have more questions, feel free to put it in the chat box, or at the end, we might open it to, get some additional questions, from the participants today. So the common questions that have come across is, how do we know that the vaccine is effective and safe? That's one. Why should we trust the vaccine? That's one of the most common ones that I get. Is there new technology that's being used? Is it dangerous to me? What is this EUA and what does it mean for me? When and how long will I be protected? Will I still need to wear a mask? Another very common question. And what are the expected side effects? What if I've already had COVID-19? And where should I get accurate information? So I think these are some of the top questions that we get, and we're going to address most of these, and maybe some more as well. Now we've seen, from the data that we've had, and you may have heard on, in various sources, up to 60% of deaths are in nursing home. This is, through May through November, the number of, Chuck, can I ask you to please mute yourself? I think Chuck Richmond. Thank you. So we've seen not only the residents who have contracted the disease, and as you see, there was a peak, and then there was a little bit of decline, a smaller peak, and then now a huge peak that's coming up. And that seems to be, going even higher. As of November 26th, there were 730,000 COVID cases in nursing homes in the United States, over 100,000 deaths. As of November 15, that number of cases was lesser, about 500,000 and 70,000 deaths. So you can see in about 11 days in November towards the end, there was a big spike of cases. And not just the nursing homes, it's also the assisted living facilities. Through October 15th of this year, there have been 28,000 cases, 20 states, out of the 23 states that had reported. In the 20 states that reported deaths, there were about 5,500 deaths in assisted living facilities. And I'm sure there are some people today on this call who have their loved ones in assisted living as well. Now, this vaccine, that we're talking about, it's what's called an mRNA vaccine, which is just a newer way of developing a vaccine. The mRNA technology is not really new yet. It's at least 10, 15 years old. And, it was initially developed as a treatment for cancer, but they soon realized that there were other potential uses of this technology, such as in vaccines. And what scientists have been able to do very quickly, because they had the existing technology, take a sequence from the earlier cases that was made available from China to the WHO and then to the United States, and they have developed this sequence of mRNA, which causes our bodies to manufacture this spike protein, that's on the surface of the virus. And when our body makes those proteins, it senses them as foreign. They're not, part of our body makeup. And there are antibodies that are developed to it. And not only that, it also primes the immune system to really work against, this kind of protein. So when, you're exposed to this vaccine at a future date, then the body's defense mechanism is already in motion and fighting off the infection. Can the mRNA vaccine give you COVID-19? The answer is no, because it's not the virus. And can mRNA vaccine change your DNA? No, it can't change your DNA because it doesn't really act on your DNA. The life cycle of a vaccine, it goes through various steps. Many federal agencies are overseeing a development of vaccine. So there's the preclinical phase first, and then it goes into development if they have a molecule that is, useful. So there's phase 1, which is safety. There's phase 2, which is effectiveness of the vaccine. Phase 3 is both safety and efficacy. And then there's a new vaccine that comes up for phase 4 clinical trials. Once the clinical trial is done, the data is reported, both safety and efficacy, and any other potential problems that they've seen. And there are 2 committees that actually see this, oversee this. One is from the FDA, one is from the CDC, and they both evaluate it independently. Now, these are independent bodies that are made up of doctors and scientists, researchers who evaluate a vaccine, and then they either approve it or they, deny it. With this particular vaccine, and the first vaccine to get approval was the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine that you probably all heard of. And when they looked at the data, this is the data after the first dose, which is you start getting immunity to COVID-19, and by about almost 2 weeks there's a separation. The yellow line being the people who took the placebo and not the real vaccine, and the purple or mauve line that represents the people who were in the study group that actually got the vaccine. And you see it's very effective even earlier on after the first dose. But the second dose is also really important because we don't know how long the immunity will last with just the first dose. The second dose really acts as a booster, giving you, good immunity for a longer period of time. And when they looked at the data, this was 95% effective. And, that was really great news. I mean, scientists all over the world were very, very encouraged by this, that we have a vaccine that's 95% effective. What they looked at also is safety of the vaccine and what are the common side effects of the vaccine. So again, here the orange or yellow represents the vaccine group, the blue represents the placebo group. And the common side effects, for younger adults between the age of 16 and 55 after the first dose was, mainly some pain along the injection site, which you can see with any other injections, whether it's vaccines, whether it's antibiotics. They saw some fatigue in both the placebo and the vaccine group, and headaches. In seniors who were over 55 years of age after the first dose, it was even better. There was less pain, there was less fatigue, less headaches in that age category. Now, with after the second dose, you can see a little bit more of the fatigue or headache or body ache or even low-grade fever. But on the whole, these were very mild. It lasted only from anywhere from 1 to 3 days after the vaccine. And they were short-lived. There were not a lot of people called out from work. and usually people tolerated it really well. Now, this was what Massachusetts came up with, the prioritization, because we knew that, when the vaccines are approved, we'll get a limited supply first. And we wanted to address the group that was most vulnerable and the group that was most exposed to this disease. So we, of course, had the clinical healthcare workers who are COVID facing, who are dealing with COVID, such as in the emergency rooms or urgent care centers, things like that. But we also were very, and this was the work that was done by the Governor's Advisory Group, which I'm a member of. We looked at long-term care very closely, and we thought it was very important to have long-term care facilities, both the residents and the staff, high up in that phase one. And that's why, starting Monday, there is vaccination clinics held at nursing homes, and that will be followed by other congregate settings such as assisted livings and then group homes and et cetera. So we're looking at phase one being done by approximately February. Phase two will start in February, will go up till April. And then phase three will be, after April. Hopefully it'll be more widely available because we'll have a better supply of vaccines. And we already had the second vaccine that was approved, which was made by Moderna. There may be more vaccines coming along early next year. So, that problem will actually get even, less of a problem, I should say, when we have more availability of vaccines, which are very effective. Now, are these vaccines safe? And safety is the most important priority in a vaccine approval because, it's much more stricter, the criteria, than it is for, say, a medication. Because medication you use to treat somebody who's already sick, but vaccine, we give it to normal people who don't have the disease. So the safety bar is much higher for a vaccine than for a medication that's used to treat a condition. And what they found was most of the side effects, it's an 8-week study, 2 months. Most of the side effects, if they occurred within 6 weeks of the vaccine. And the common side effects was what I spoke about already on the earlier slide, which was, feeling tired, some pain where you get the injection, sometimes fever, and those responses were really less in older adults. Monitoring of the safety and regarding the vaccine will continue, and there are 9 different federal agencies that are going to be monitoring the safety data as more people are vaccinated. Just to give you an idea, the FDA typically advises a minimum of 3,000 participants in a study trial, for approval, to consider approval. The current COVID trials for both the Pfizer and the Moderna had, anywhere from 30 to 50,000 participants. So it's almost 10 to, 18 times of what is required. So the next question comes, when and how long will I be protected with the vaccine? Now, most of the vaccines are 2 doses. Both the Pfizer and the Moderna are 2 doses. Pfizer is 3 weeks apart for each dose. Moderna vaccine is 4 weeks apart. The protection occurs about 1 to 2 weeks after the second dose. Okay, so you're not fully protected till you get the second dose and 2 weeks from there. We don't know how long the protective effect will last. I think time will tell. But it could be a situation where you need a yearly vaccine like the flu vaccine. It may be a little bit longer than that. That's yet to be seen. Another question I get a lot of times is how was the vaccine developed so quickly? Then they must have, cut corners or skipped steps. And the answer is no, they did no such thing. There were some reasons why the vaccine could be developed this quickly. One, because the technology existed. So, the vaccine was not really developed within the last year. It actually had many steps. The technology existed for at least 10, 15 years already. And what they were able to do is plug into an already existing mechanism and get the vaccine, much more quickly than normally. There was also a global effort with the world's leading scientists focused on on this one task. Nearly unlimited resources, money, knowledge, manpower. The government spent billions of dollars on this. And not only just the US, many other countries did the same. And then, we didn't really have a shortage of participants because so many people contracted COVID-19 that it was easy to get volunteers to be a participant in the clinical trials. Now, what if you've already had COVID-19? Would you still be eligible to get the vaccine? And the answer is yes. Even if you had COVID-19, the body makes antibodies, and that may not be of sufficient quantity and good enough quality or last long enough. So you really need to get the vaccine to get proper protection from contracting the disease. Even if you've tested for antibodies, which not a whole lot of people did, but I know some people did, you should still get the COVID-19 vaccine. If you've had it recently, you could still get it. The only time I would say you shouldn't get it if you're actively having the disease right now. The question of trust is a huge one. This is one of the most common questions that I get. People are a little bit skeptical about it for various reasons. But, again, one of the reasons for this talk is the FDA, to assure you that the FDA used the same strict standards, no skip steps. The two independent advisory committees that I was talking about, one advises the FDA, which is called the VRB PAC, and then the second one is called ACIP that advises the CDC. And they both independently review the efficacy data as well as the safety data. So I'm going to stop here, and I believe we do have some questions that we can talk about. I'm just trying to get to the right place here.
Do you want me to read off some of the questions, Dr. Merchant?
Sure. So, Chris will act as a moderator, and she'll kind of guide me to, to the right questions. And if you have more questions, please continue to, write in your questions, and we'll go through those questions first.
Okay. So there's a question about staggering staff vaccines in case people have reactions after the first one. And is there a plan that, maybe that vaccination should be staggered?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. And, there were many concerns about this. If, residents have the side effects or fall sick as a result of the vaccine, which is the expected side effect, fever, body ache, not feeling well, not eating well. And the staff at the same time have some of these symptoms, which may put staffing pressures. But we, from the amount of vaccines that have already been done, in Massachusetts, it started on Monday this week. But in other parts of the country, it has already been given to many nursing homes. They have not really seen that much of a problem with staff callouts. It's been very well tolerated and very well received. The way the federal pharmacy partnership program was created was that there are 3 visits from either CVS or Walgreens, whichever the facility chose to partner with. So in those 3 visits, you have to immunize everybody and give both the 2 doses. So there was not a lot of leeway to really stagger it. There was some staggering, but not what we thought of it would be. But at the same time, we've not seen a lot of problems with side effects, at least for the first dose.
Okay. You know what? This may be a good time to ask Debbie Friedman to see if she has any comments about how what their vaccination process is at the facility where she works, where they all got their first vaccine yesterday. Debbie, can you speak to that?
Hi, yes, hi everybody. So I'm Debbie Friedman, and I'm the Director of Clinical Services for Salmon Health and Retirement. So I oversee Beaumont, Whitney Place, and Willows. So we started the process yesterday. We've actually had 2 clinics. We had one yesterday and one today, We've vaccinated at this point about 500 people between the 2 days. Luckily, we've had no reactions. We've been vaccinating the residents and the staff more or less at the same time. It's almost like 2 clinics are going on. There's one for the staff that we're bringing in, and then there's another team that goes up and they're vaccinating the residents. Thus far, we've seen minimal reactions, but as Dr. Merchant was saying, I think back to your question about staffing, we're kind of at the will of CVS in terms of having access to the vaccine. They are the only ones that can actually administer the vaccine when they're on our campus. So at this point, we are not able to stagger the staff the way we'd like to, but there are multiple staffing contingencies available to us that we're working through in case there are issues. But yesterday we had nobody missed work today. We gave 196 staff vaccinations yesterday in Westboro, and nobody called in sick today. Today we gave 150 in Northbridge and nobody called. Well, hopefully, everybody was fine. We had no reactions. So we're, just moving forward. It's a new process for all of us, even CVS. We were the first clinics they did. So we're learning together.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Merchant, there's a question about long-term care residents having reactions, which I think Debbie spoke to a little bit, but then also any comments about the vaccine having lower efficacy for the elderly population? Have you heard of that?
So that's a great question. There may be a little bit lower efficacy. We don't know that for sure, but in older seniors, there may be a little bit less of the immune response. But as I said, these vaccines are 95% effective. So even if there's a marginally lower, these are still very highly effective. Now, the FDA would have granted approval even if the vaccine was 50% effective. We are talking about numbers of 94 and 95% here. So, even if it's marginally less and it's not really being looked at that closely, they are still very effective.
Okay. Dr. Merchant, this next question, I think I want to just preface before I read it that there's a lot of folks from many different facilities on this call. So specific questions are going to be more difficult to answer. But I think, Dr. Merchant can touch on this a little bit. There was a question about the chain distribution and expected delivery dates. And then also if the vaccines will be given in any particular order, such as by patient floor or by patient name.
Right. So, much of the details of, when your particular facility will get it, it's a discussion between your facility and mostly it's CVS or Walgreens, scheduling your facility. And by now, I think most of the facilities in Massachusetts have a date or have the first 2 dates, I should say. Mm-hmm. When they're doing the vaccination. They have very little control over it other than, getting a date from CVS or Walgreens, and we have no control over it. So it's whatever is decided. The distribution of the vaccine, because it's a federal pharmacy partnership, there is a direct supply from the federal government to either CVS or Walgreens, and they are responsible for maintaining the cold chain for the Pfizer vaccine, which requires a storage of -80 degrees. So they are responsible for maintaining all that and getting the vaccine and even, really giving a shot in somebody's arm. So that's all a part of the federal pharmacy partnership program.
I mean, I can add a little to that. So what we're doing in our buildings is the CVS pharmacy representative is going around, but we're also sending 2 nursing people from our staff with the CVS pharmacy person. One of the people is somebody that knows the residents on that neighborhood. So they're able to kind of tell them they're coming, get them ready, let them know what's, help them explain what's happening. Because I know many of you can't be with your loved ones and help them understand. So that's kind of where our staff is stepping in and bridging the gap with CVS, to help them with, just getting everybody ready, help making them feel okay. And then the other staff member that we're providing is actually helping with the logistics of the injection, managing PPE, the protective equipment, infection control issues, making sure they have, the gown, the gloves. They're all I've been very impressed with CVS, I have to say, so far. They have come completely prepared with boxes of gowns, and I didn't know what to expect when they were coming. But they're coming with gowns and gloves and disposal, and they have everything they need. They just kind of need us to help bridge the gap with the staff, with the residents, to make the residents feel okay and understand what's going on.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
I'll head back to the questions. There's a question, Dr. Merchant, about risks of someone having a more severe reaction after getting the vaccine who has lupus. Have you heard of that at all?
No, we haven't. So, there has been some concern about autoimmune diseases and lupus, but there was no evidence in the trials to really, tell you one way or the other. By and large, these vaccines are considered safe and particularly important for people who have some kind of immune deficiency, which is also, present in lupus.
So can I just ask to clarify? So people may have these chronic diseases, but that makes them need the vaccine even more, right?
Yes.
They should get that even more, even though they have a risk.
Yeah. So I didn't go through the phase 2 of the vaccine distribution plan in Massachusetts, but very high on that phase 2 will be people with 2+ chronic medical conditions, such as it could be diabetes, cancer, COPD, emphysema, or heart failure. So those become a higher risk to contract COVID and bad effects of the COVID virus should they get that. So it makes it even more important for people with chronic illnesses to get the vaccine.
Okay, thanks. I have an interesting question about antibodies. If you've had COVID vaccine before, you touched on this a little bit. If someone's had COVID-19, will having antibodies from that help prevent from getting it again?
Yeah, so what we know usually, for the first 3 months after COVID illness, most of the people do have enough antibodies to protect them for the first 3 months. After that first 3 months, we don't know. So as I said, natural immunity that comes may be very short-lived. And that's exactly the reason why people should get the vaccine, even if they have COVID-19 before, to get a more, sustained response to, an immune response so that you don't get COVID again, or at least you're protecting yourself 94, 95% times.
All right. This next question is from Sue Lamb, and I'm just going to have to ask for some clarification. The question says, will you provide the PPT to all participants? And if so, where can we find copies of it after the call? I'm not quite sure.
I think it refers to probably the PowerPoint presentation.
Oh.
What we're doing
Okay,
is
smart.
we're recording this, so that will be made available. We have to find a platform. It will, as I said, it'll either be on our LinkedIn or a Facebook page, and you can go there and you can look at it and you can share from there also.
All right.
And, that's actually a good question for Casey Riley. People
Yes.
can contact her later on.
Perfect. Okay. Next question. Is the COVID-19 vaccine effective for the the mutation that they've discovered in Britain?
Yeah, so the information is coming, quickly, and from every indication so far, it is still effective against the new strain. This new strain seems to be more contagious, so it'll be great to have as many people vaccinated as soon as possible to contain the spread of the new strain, which is more infectious than the original one.
Okay. Is there a plan for how patients should be monitored after an injection for adverse reactions, or in particular, how long they should be monitored?
Yeah, so I'm the staff from the CVS or Walgreens are going to monitor people for about 15 minutes, but Debbie can help me here too. The nursing home staff is available and they're monitoring patients. We want to really monitor patients for up to, closely for the first 3 days. Should they get any side effects? It doesn't mean they have COVID, even if they have a low grade fever. The DPH, the Department of Public Health, has put out some guidelines about how to navigate, if somebody has fevers after the vaccine, and they may, still get a test done. But, there will be some observation by the nursing home staff. Debbie, do you want to chime in?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so we are, for the first 15 minutes, we're closely monitoring, and then 30 minutes, for the immediate reaction. We do have extra EpiPens and, multiple things available to us to immediately monitor or handle an issue. After that, we have put orders in place that for 72 hours, we'll be monitoring residents for at least 2 to 3 times a shift, checking in on them, making sure there's no reactions. And that's based on the CDC guidelines.
Okay.
So we're going to put standing orders in place for everybody.
Okay, thank you. This next question is a tough one. It reads, my dad has had COVID-19 and has underlying health issues. How do I know if COVID-19 left additional deficits? And how am I supposed to make an educated decision for what is best for him if I don't know?
Yeah, so, what I would say really is, we don't know what kind of deficits, and I don't know if you know what kind of deficits, but people have complained about many different things, and the doctors are still, figuring out what all COVID can affect. We know there's been some neurological complications, some respiratory complications long-term. We know that it can affect the heart muscle. So there's a whole bunch of things that it can affect. And the last thing you want is another COVID infection. So the best way to, make sure or offer some protection is through vaccination.
Okay.
Getting it once is bad enough. Getting it twice, not something to look forward to.
Okay. There's a question here about the vaccines being FDA approved. And it asks, are both vaccines FDA approved?
The both vaccines have received approval for emergency use. That's what's called the EUA. Now, shortly after an EUA, it may get full approval. But since, this is a public health crisis, they had to act quickly. I don't see that the FDA is not going to give them full approval. I think that's coming. It's just a longer process. And that's why there is what's called emergency use approval for both those vaccines.
Okay. There's another question about the slides being posted. Casey, do you want to mention where we might be posting the slides for people to check after the presentation?
Yes, absolutely. So hi, everyone. I'm Casey Riley. I'm definitely on the invitation. So if you're looking for my contact information, you can email me or you can even call me if you're having any difficulty, because it's really important that you guys get this information. I'm happy to email it to you directly. So as of this evening, this live video will be launched on our link company page. And if you guys actually go to the search on your LinkedIn page, if you're on that site, you can type in New England Community Medical Services, and you guys will not only see this video, but we're going to continuously put education on this company page that we have. In addition to that, we do have a website, and it's actually our company page. So if you go on Google and you type in our company name, again, it's New England Community Medical Services, you'll be able to see these videos. We're going to be working on launching them within the next day or two. Also, it's really kind of exciting. We're going to be launching a Facebook company page as well. So we're just working on getting that launched within the next few days. So definitely look for us, and definitely come to visit us and call us if you have any questions. We're here to support you. And I can't thank you all enough for joining this evening. I know how busy everyone is, so I appreciate it.
Thanks. We have a lot of questions, and I thank everybody for making so many comments in the chat. There's a couple though that I don't think that we'll be able to answer about when vaccines will be given at specific places. And what I would recommend for that, and Dr. Merchant, please, if you have a different suggestion, but what I would say is contact the facility, either the assisted living or the nursing home, talk with the management team, either the administrator or the director of nursing. They will know the plan. Okay.
Yes, so I just like to add something to that. So we are at the will of CVS or Walgreens, and we're waiting for them basically to tell us the dates. They're setting dates, and then they're communicating with each, campus or building independently. It's CVS and Walgreens are overwhelmed, I think, and understandably. It's a pandemic and they're taking on a huge task. So they have and if you actually, their website too, the CVS, it's Omnicare. I don't know right out. If you Google Omnicare COVID resources, there's a lot of information about, we're using CVS personally in our company, and there's a ton of information about how the program works, what they're doing, but the actual dates are like the mystery. It's a secret almost. We wait for them to tell us, and then we, get the information and we set up, and then we wait to hear from them. It's there's not even a lot of times we don't even get a phone number that we can call them back at. It's getting a little better now as we're getting out of the early phases, but have patience with your buildings, because I saw somebody was Willows of Worcester is one of my buildings. I think people were asking that. We haven't gotten a date yet. The independent living is not, we're still dealing with group 1A, which is skilled. Independent living residents aren't until group 1C. So it could be a little while before we hear about that specific population. We're working our way through the skilled nursing, and then 1B is, and I'm sure you guys all know because you're watching the news, but it's all the first responders, fire department, police department, all that. And then 1C are the residents. So hopefully once we have more vaccine available, this will go much more quickly. But at this point, it's really being held tight for the skilled nursing facility and hospital workers at this point. But once we have information, we'll get it out there for sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So Chris, I just wanted to point out to everybody, I put in a link in the chat, which is the federal pharmacy partnership program. There's some details on that, but of course there won't be any dates. The dates are direct communication from CVS or Walgreens to the facility. And by the way, they'll first do the nursing homes first, and then it'll go to the assisted living.
Okay. We have another question. During your presentation, Dr. Merchant, you talked about some of the side effects from the vaccine. Do you have any idea, or does anybody know how long those side effects could last for?
Usually they're short-lived, 1 to 3 days and usually they're mild. So we've not seen a lot of side effects yet, which is great.
Okay. All right. Okay, so this is a question I think that's on a lot of people's minds. What happens if you're in between facilities? We have a question from a patient that is in rehab waiting for a bed at a nursing home. And if he gets the shot in one place, how will he be able, if he moves, how would he be able to get the second shot?
Yeah, that's a good question. And, this came
Yeah.
up today at one of the facilities where I was at. Somebody who was getting discharged from a skilled nursing facility back to the assisted living facility. So there are a couple of different options here. One is if they get their first shot at the skilled nursing facility, there will be an option. And again, this has to be offered by the skilled nursing facility that you can come back for the second clinic and get the shot. Because once you're in the system, you will be eligible to get the second shot. Or they could go to the assisted living facility, in the case that I'm talking about, and they will get the first shot there because, assisted livings have not started doing their COVID vaccination yet. It'll come after the nursing homes are done with their first shot. So those are a couple of different options. Now, if somebody's waiting for a long-term care bed somewhere, it depends on when they will actually be moved. So if they move before the facility that they're going to has not yet done their second round yet, or the second visit by the pharmacy, they could get their first shot then, and then get the second shot on the third visit. So it depends on the timing, but there are a few different options, and the Department of Public Health has encouraged people to get their first shot, because even the first shot gives you some, amount of immunity. It's pretty good. The other thing that a lot of people don't understand or don't realize is the 3 weeks between the two vaccines is the minimum time period. It's actually 17 days for the Pfizer vaccine. But there is no maximum time in between the two shots, right? So even if you got the first shot now and second shot, 3 months from now, that's okay. It gives you a little bit less immunity in between those two dates.
Okay. We have a question for Debbie. When will the Willows, you already said that you didn't know about the Willows. They haven't gotten a date yet, correct?
Yeah, we haven't received notification.
Okay.
On that.
How do you plan to communicate once you do get that information? How will you let the people know? Somebody's wondering.
Oh, okay. Well, normally we communicate through emails and voice friends for the families. Are the two main communications. So if you haven't, I would reach out to the building and make sure that you're on that communication. The voice friend is a text message. It's the quickest way, but we do post on our websites as well as the dates.
Okay.
The different, and I don't know I honestly don't know what it will look like for the Willows at this point. In the skilled nursing facilities, just educationally, so you guys know, with the skilled nursing facilities, they go room to room, CBS. So we put together a group and we go room to room and we vaccinate. That's not so much going to be the case, at least what we're being told in assisted living and independent, is we're going to be setting up clinics where people come down. I mean, that's the information we have at this point. So what we've done, we'll take what we've learned with the employee clinics and apply that to the assisted living and independent living in terms of check-in, social distancing, mask use, hand hygiene to make sure that everybody's safe. But what we're being told right now is that it will be a clinic in one of our community rooms that CVS will be there with the vaccine and provide, and we'll have to bring everybody down. That may change, but that's what we're being told at this point.
Okay.
So Debbie, Willows is an assisted living, right? And just
assisted too, yeah.
Right.
Assisted and independent.
And independent. Yeah. So right now, I think most of the nursing homes have got their dates. Assisted living is later on, so it'll be a little bit longer, I think, before they get all their dates. So just be patient. I'm sure there's a good, way the facilities will contact you about their dates.
Yeah, assisted living is mid-Jan. I mean, we haven't gotten dates yet, but they've started reaching out and they're saying mid to late January.
Late Jan is what I hear, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I guess there's some screening questions on the consent form. And somebody has a question about what if you answer yes to the screening questions, for example, having diabetes or asthma or taking blood thinners? Is
Yeah,
that,
so, this has caused a little bit of confusion. The consent forms, at least from CVS, are 2 pages long, much longer than we originally thought. Those are, just information that they are gathering. Uh, those are not contraindications. So they want to know if somebody, say, develops a bump here on the arm after the vaccine, was it from the vaccine, or could it be potentially if you're on a blood thinner? But those are not contraindications. Those are not things that that should deter you from getting a vaccine. Those are just information. As I said, they're collecting a lot of information about any potential effects, and this will just, this all goes to a central database where we can gather additional information. And these are some of the questions that have been put in on the consent.
okay, all right. Next question is, my mom is 90 years old and is allergic to penicillin and Claritin. She had swelling and a rash on her arm from the flu shot this year. Should she get the vaccine?
Yeah, so there are a few severe allergic reactions, and I'm sure people have heard about this, when they started doing vaccinations in the United Kingdom, which was, almost a week and a half before the vaccine was approved here in the United States. They saw some severe anaphylactic reaction. And when I say anaphylactic reaction, it means a very severe kind of allergic reaction where, you start choking, you can't breathe, your tongue swells up, your lips may swell up, you're having trouble breathing. It's not just a rash. If anybody has had a anaphylactic reaction, the one I just described, to any other vaccine, then they should probably not take this vaccine. If they've had an anaphylactic reaction to an unknown allergen that they don't know what triggered that anaphylactic reaction, then probably not a good idea to take the vaccine. Or if they have a severe anaphylactic reaction to one of the components of the vaccine, and the components of the vaccine are available on the CDC website, it's usually either polyethylene glycol or the lipid, nanoparticle that's present in the vaccine. So, if you're in doubt, you should check with your PCP. But those are the common, few severe allergies. Food allergies have, it's okay. Allergies to other medications is also okay. It's just these few things that you have to be really careful about.
Okay, so what you're saying is if you have swelling at the site or rash or redness at the site, that's more considered a local reaction as opposed to an anaphylactic reaction.
Right. And
So-
even if you have a rash, it's not really an anaphylactic reaction. Anaphylactic reaction would be a very severe form of an allergic reaction where, your throat just closes up and you have trouble breathing. Your face or your lips or your tongue may just swell up. So those are the tricky ones.
Okay, all right. And this is a sort of a similar question. I think this relates to the flu. Everybody knows about the flu vaccine, how if you're allergic to eggs or if you have an underlying condition like Guillain-Barré, you should avoid the flu shot. Is there anything like that associated with the COVID-19 that we've learned yet?
They haven't seen any of that. On one of the trials, they saw some Bell's palsy and 4 cases of Bell's palsy, but that was well within the margin of normal, because if you take a population of 50,000 people and follow them over a 2-month period, there will be some people who fall sick from other things. Some people get a heart attack. Some people may perhaps die. Some people may get a stroke. But this was seen in both the vaccine group and the placebo group. They saw these 4 cases of Bell's palsy in one of the study groups, but it was very small number. So there was they didn't think it was related to the vaccine.
Okay, all right. If somebody doesn't get the vaccine on the first distribution, meaning, I think, well, how long would they have to wait for a second chance? So if they don't get it during either the first or the second time that CVS goes to a building, is there any plan for longer term, like to get another chance, or is this people's only chance to get it?
Well, I'm sure there will be another chance somewhere, but we don't know. That's not really being determined because, it again comes down to logistics more than anything else. The federal government has created this program with CVS and Walgreens where they come 3 times. Now, if you don't get your first shot in either the first attempt or the second attempt, the third attempt, you may not get the first shot, right? We don't know what happens after that as yet. The Department of Public Health is still, looking at either developing, certain vaccination centers, or maybe your local CVS or Walgreens may have it, but, it's not clear when they would get a supply. So it's really logistics. I would encourage people if they, they should consider taking the vaccine either in the first or the second attempt.
Okay. There's a question about the effectiveness. There was something in a newspaper that said the Pfizer vaccine has only a 74.4% efficacy rate for Asian people. Is that something you've heard of?
I have not really looked at the data. I know most of the trials. I'm not really sure how many Asians were in the trial, but I know there was a fair representation from Caucasians, African Americans, and Latinx. I don't know the breakdown. That's something that I'll have to look into.
Okay. We've gotten a lot of questions about underlying medical diseases with high blood pressure, diabetes.
All the more reason to take the vaccine.
Right. Elderly people that are feeling weak and fatigued and don't eat well in general. Is that the type of person that could tolerate a reaction from the vaccine?
I think they could tolerate the vaccine much more than they could tolerate COVID-19.
The disease. Yeah.
I think it's, if you're given a choice, vaccine or getting the disease, I would take vaccine any day. Right.
Yep.
And I think, we're kind of, I'm coming close to, an hour, but, I know all of you have been really distressed by the fact that you can't visit your loved ones the way you used to. There are a lot of restrictions. The nursing homes have been closed for many months, and then, some openings. But, if we get enough people vaccinated, there's a good chance that, those regulations will be relaxed. Now, I can't speak on behalf of the Department of Public Health, and I'm not going to even try to do that. But, when there is, enough of an immunity that's built up, then and only then will things start changing and things be opening up for everybody. And that will give you an opportunity to spend time with your mother or father or your loved one, whoever it is, in the nursing home or the assisted living, so that you can, maybe share a meal with them or encourage them to eat or feed them, with your hands. I think that's kind of what we are hoping for.
Okay. A couple of questions at the end, Dr. Merchant, which I think we can maybe just reiterate. A lot of people have asked how they can have access to this presentation. And I know Casey or somebody posted the link to our website, and the presentation will be there. Some people were questioning that they only got the information about this call from the facility. And so they're wondering how they would then know about where the presentation is posted. So we can also let the facilities know where this presentation will be posted, so they can get it to you that way as well. I don't want anybody to feel like they won't have access to the information.
Yeah, if we can also, we do have our website. I think somebody posted that.
Yes.
If you want to send a question to that website, or we'll try and post something there, over the next week or so, some additional information, maybe a copy of this video or a link to this video as well.
Okay.
because we want as many people as possible to see the video. It doesn't do us any good to just keep the video hidden away from this is an informational session that I hope you have benefited from, and I would want more people to get the benefit out of this.
All right. If nobody has anything else to add, if you do have a question and you want to unmute and ask a question live.
Yeah, there was one question, Chris. That's a very good logistic question. There are residents that are not on the computer. How do they get the info? Now,
Oh, I missed that one.
Yeah,
Yes, we still have a question.
Yeah, hold on one second. We'll give you a chance to ask the question. But almost all the nursing homes do have access to iPads or some kind of a tablet device. Once we have the link that is posted, you can ask your facility, hey, I want to look at that, see that video. Are you able to put it up on your iPad or your tablet and show it to me? I think that's a good way to go about that problem. But Chris, I'll leave it back to you because I think there were a few questions that people had to ask.
Yes, if anybody has a question that they want to ask live, they can unmute themselves and.
Well, we just did.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Well, I'm trying to add in a question that we did put in at the chat. And it has to do with the issue of receiving the vaccination at a non-medical site, which is in our case, actually the Willows, but it's more general. In the case of a severe anaphylactic reaction, will the non-medical site reliably actually have the EpiPen or whatever is necessary to deal with that severe reaction?
Yeah, let me just address that question first, and if it's specific to Willows, I'll let Debbie answer the second part of the question. But in general, with the Federal Pharmacy Partnership Program, it's up to CVS and Walgreens, and they've been carrying EpiPens and they've been carrying kits.
All right.
Deal with a severe anaphylactic reaction. I've also seen many facilities just notify their local EMS that they're going to do a vaccination on so-and-so date, so that they're aware and they're on standby.
Okay.
But Debbie is the right person to really talk about what they'll do at Willows.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, I agree with what Dr. Merchant just said, is that the pharmacy does come equipped and we're ready during the clinic for an emergency. But other than that, we're calling 911. I mean, when an anaphylactic reaction happens, even if you're in a skilled nursing facility, you only have, if you have an EpiPen, you don't have a lot of, you can do CPR, you don't have a lot available to you, to do that. So I think that's a great suggestion that you made, Dr. Merchant, that we definitely will let, our local fire departments and EMS system know when we are doing the clinic so that we can have them be aware. But unfortunately, you could have a reaction to anything, and we do our best, but in certain environments, when you're not in the hospital, it's calling 911, and that's what we train our staff to do in that type of situation.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else?
I came in late, so I have a question as far as the vaccine itself. What is the difference between the two, and how do you find out which one is you're going? My son is in a nursing home, so how would I find out which one they would be using? The Pfizer or the Moderna or something like that?
So the vaccines are similar. They're made by different companies, but they both are mRNA vaccines. So this technology used is similar. Now, the differences are really, one is 94% effective, one is 95% effective. I don't really consider that a difference at all. There are some different storage requirements, how the vaccine is handled, but that's not something that, you and I have to worry about. That's, CVS and Walgreens that are taking care of that problem right now. I can tell you this much: in Massachusetts, for nursing homes, it's going to be the Pfizer vaccine primarily. That's what's being used. That's what's going to continue. Because once you give the first dose, you'll have to have the second dose with the same vaccine. You can't mix and match, as I said. So I hope that answers all your questions. There were 2 or 3 parts to that question.
One thing that did come up
So I have a question.
Sure.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. I'll just say quickly.
Yeah, you just said that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So I was just going to say, it's important if people get one vaccine, the first dose, that they get the same vaccine for the second dose, which is why in a nursing home, when CVS or Walgreens comes, they're going to have that one particular vaccine, and then when they come back, they'll have the same one. So that's something that they would definitely be taking care of.
Okay, so they will take care of that. But my question is, I go back to Dr. Merchant said earlier that I think one of the questions that asked, let's say if my dad is in the rehab right now, so he's in the transition going to the long-term nursing home. So let's say he got it, the first shot at the rehab, So let's say if he moved before he go to, to the long-term nursing home before he got the second shot. So when he moved over there, would he waive? Let's say that facility did not have the first shot yet, because right now they doing the, I don't know. I'm just saying that, if they don't have the first shot yet. So what happened to my dad? Is he going to wait until everybody get the first shot over there first, and then he will get his second? I think Dr. mentioned something he should get another first shot over there and then do the second shot. I don't know.
No, Cindy, let me just clarify. It depends
Sorry.
it depends on when your dad will be moved. So what you need to do is find out from the facility where he's at right now, what their dates are. Then, talk to the facility where he'll be moving to and what their dates are. So depending on when he's going to be moving, try and get both the shots at that same facility.
But right now we don't know yet. We're still looking for the, like a long-term facility. So he should still get the first shot.
Yeah, so get him the first shot where he is right now. And then there might be an option for him to come back, just, like he's going to the doctor's office, come back to the facility and get the second shot right there where he's got the first.
No, given the quarantine procedures in the new facility, nursing home facility, he's probably most likely would not be allowed to leave and keep coming back and forth. That's my
so that is up to the facility, because many of my facilities that we go to, we have asked them to allow patients who have been discharged to come back and get the second shot if they've already gotten the first shot. The Department of Public Health in Massachusetts has also encouraged that. CVS and Walgreens will do it, but it's up to the facility. So I can't speak on behalf of the facility. That's something that you'll have to check with them.
Right. Dr. Merchant, we had one other big question. I think a lot of people probably have it on their minds. So I think it's important that we bring it up before we sign off. The question is, once all staff and residents are vaccinated, will in-house visits be allowed again?
That's a great question, and the answer is, I don't know. Because it depends on the Department of Public Health. What they'll do is they'll review all the data, and every shot that's being given is being accounted for. So they will look at the data at some point, what percentage of the staff was already vaccinated, 2 vaccines, what percentage of the staff has already been vaccinated, residents and staff. And then they'll make a determination, because, for the next few weeks, they're still going to do a lot of testing. And once those tests start coming back negative consistently, I think there's a good chance that nursing homes will open up to visitation. Okay, so I can only hope, and I'm an optimist. I like to think positively, even though positive is not a good word anymore. You know, I think it's important that as many people get vaccinated quickly so we can get back to some kind of normalcy.
Right.
But you're still going to wear a mask. You're still going to wear a gown. In some cases, you're still going to wear, you know, either goggles or a protective eye shield. Because as I said, these vaccines are very effective, 94, 95%. There's a small percentage of chance that you can still get COVID-19 in spite of vaccination. But if you get the disease after you've been vaccinated, it's probably going to be a very mild form of the disease, like a cold, so that you don't really get sick from it as such, but you could still transmit it to somebody else. And that's why it's important to continue using a mask, you know, and secondly, in some kind of an eyewear till we achieve some things. You know, I'm sure you've all heard the word herd immunity, which would be, you know, anywhere 70, 80% of the population is vaccinated.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
All right, have a good night.
All right, take care. Good night.
So much.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
joining. Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New
New
Year.
Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thanks,
Be safe.
everybody.
Hang on.
Hey, Tanya.